We all live inside a house, but it's one we can't actually see. It's this invisible, really powerful structure that kind of shapes who we become. So today, we're going to explore its blueprint. We're calling it the architecture of shrinking.
I want you to think about the house you grew up in. You can probably picture the layout in your head right now, right? The kitchen, your bedroom. But what if I told you there was another blueprint for that house? An emotional one. One with all these unwritten rules about how to act, what you were allowed to feel, and exactly how much space you could take up.
And yeah, that's really the core idea here. Just like a physical house has walls and doorways and a foundation, every family has its own set of emotional rules. These are the rules that tell you what's safe, what leads to connection, and what makes you feel like you belong. For so many of us, this invisible structure is what really built our world.
Okay, so where does an architecture like this even get started? Well, it all begins way back in childhood, with a fundamental survival skill that, in some way or another, we've all had to learn: how to stay small.
Just try to imagine an environment where the emotional weather is totally unpredictable. One moment, there's warmth, there's laughter, and the next, boom, a sudden storm of anger, or maybe just silence. In a home like that, love can start to feel conditional, and safety is never, ever a guarantee. The only rule you can count on is that you can't count on anything.
In that kind of unpredictable climate, a kid learns a really critical survival skill: shrinking. It's that instinct to just pull yourself in, to get quieter, to be less demanding, to become less visible. And honestly, it's a pretty brilliant strategy for avoiding emotional landmines you can't even see.
And this whole thing becomes this automatic four-step process. First, you just sense it. You feel that invisible tension in the air. Second, you minimize your presence. You try to take up less space physically and emotionally. Third, you push your own needs way, way down. And fourth, you just focus on one single thing: getting through that moment. Now, as a childhood strategy, it's a genius adaptation. It works. But what happens when that kid grows up and the old dangers aren't there anymore? Well, that childhood strategy, it leaves behind an adult echo. And here's the absolute crucial shift. See, in childhood, shrinking was an active strategy, something you did to create a feeling of safety. But in adulthood, it's not a strategy anymore. It becomes your default state. It's no longer a choice you make. It's just this constant, low-level hum in the background, always scanning for danger, even when there's none around.
This default state, it has a name. It's called hypervigilance. And what it is, really, is that old emotional blueprint from your childhood getting automatically applied to every new building you walk into. Your office, a friend's house, a new relationship. Your internal alarm system is still playing by the old, outdated rules, assuming danger is always right around the corner.
The first thing I do in any room is take its emotional temperature. I mean, just listen to that. It says it all, doesn't it? This isn't some abstract clinical idea. This is how it actually feels to live. It's walking into a room and scanning, not for the fire exit, but for the mood. Who's upset here? Does it feel tense? What do I need to do to make sure everything stays calm? So what does living inside this old blueprint actually look like day to day? Well, it can look like apologizing. Constantly. For everything. It's having a really hard time making even simple decisions. It's avoiding conflict no matter what, and it's feeling like you're somehow responsible for how everyone else is feeling. And maybe most of all, it's that deep struggle to ever truly relax, because some part of you is always on watch. Just understanding this architecture, seeing it for what it is, that's the first most crucial step. Because, and this is the good news, it doesn't have to be a life sentence. And that brings us to the most important parts, the possibility of living outside the blueprint. It is so important to remember this. That tendency to shrink, that hypervigilance, that was a survival map. It helped the younger version of you navigate some really difficult terrain. It was smart, it was necessary, it worked. But you wouldn't use a map of a war zone to get around a peaceful city, right? It was designed for a different place and a different time. It's not meant to be used everywhere, especially when you're finally standing on safe ground.
And so that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. That old architecture, it was all designed for one purpose: to keep you small so you could stay safe. But just recognizing that it's a blueprint and that blueprints can be redrawn is incredibly powerful. It lets us ask a brand new question: what happens when we dare to take up space?